Rain fell like a confession that night, heavy and unforgiving, soaking the marble steps of the five-star hotel and washing the city in silver streaks of light. Expensive cars slid past without slowing, umbrellas snapped open and shut, and no one noticed the woman in the red dress leaning against a black luxury sedan, her hand pressed to her stomach, her face pale with fear. Power, money, status, none of it mattered in that moment, because pain does not recognize wealth. She could barely breathe, barely stand, and the words kept tearing out of her chest in silent sobs. She couldn't go, she couldn't move, she couldn't survive this alone. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected humanity, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever. Her name was Eleanor Whitmore, a name that carried weight in boardrooms and headlines. She was a self-made millionaire, the kind people admired from a distance and envied in silence. She owned companies, properties, and influence, but she owned none of the warmth she watched other people share so easily. Her life had been built on precision and control, on never needing anyone, on never showing weakness. That night, dressed for a charity gala she had hosted herself, control abandoned her completely. The pain came suddenly, sharp and deep, stealing her breath and bending her forward as rain plastered her hair to her face. Her driver had gone inside to retrieve something, her phone had slipped from her hand and cracked on the wet pavement, and for the first time in years, Eleanor Whitmore was truly alone. Across the street, beneath the flickering glow of a street lamp, a motorcycle idled. The rider sat still, rain sliding off his leather vest and tattooed arms, his eyes fixed not on the luxury of the hotel but on the woman struggling beside the car. His name was Lucas Hale. He had no fortune, no headlines, no polished reputation. He was a biker with a past full of scars, some on his skin, most buried deep inside. He had learned long ago that people judged him before he spoke, that the patches on his vest erased his humanity in the eyes of strangers. Still, something in Eleanor's posture, the way her hand shook against her stomach, the fear that hollowed her eyes, pulled him off his bike without hesitation. Lucas had grown up watching his mother suffer in silence, refusing help because pride told her pain was something to endure alone. He had watched that pride cost her everything. So when he saw Eleanor, soaked and shaking, he didn't see a millionaire or a stranger. He saw someone on the edge. He crossed the street as cars honked and rain splashed around his boots, his presence startling in the quiet urgency of the moment. Eleanor barely registered him at first. Her world had narrowed to pain and panic, to the terrifying thought that something inside her was going terribly wrong and that she might collapse right there on the cold pavement. She tried to straighten, to wave him away, but her strength failed her. The truth spilled out in broken breaths and tears she hadn't allowed herself in years. She couldn't go anywhere on her own. She couldn't drive. She couldn't wait. The hospital felt impossibly far, like another country she had no passport to reach. Fear stripped her of titles and defenses, leaving only a frightened woman clinging to a car door in the rain. Lucas listened without interrupting, the rain soaking them both, the city blurring into a distant hum. He had no medical training, no perfect solution, but he had a bike, a steady presence, and a heart that refused to walk away. He helped her into the passenger seat of the car when he realized she couldn't ride, drove with hands that had rebuilt engines but now held a steering wheel like it carried something fragile and priceless. Traffic lights blurred red and green as he took side streets, ignoring the luxury of the vehicle and focusing only on the shallow rise and fall of Eleanor's chest. Inside the hospital, fluorescent lights replaced rain, and the smell of antiseptic cut through the night. Nurses rushed, doctors asked questions, and Eleanor was wheeled away before she could process what was happening. Lucas was left standing alone in the waiting area, soaked leather creaking as he sat, ignored by most, judged by some. He didn't leave. He sat through the hours, through the stares, through the gnawing worry that something terrible might happen to a woman he barely knew but could not forget. As the night stretched on, fragments of Eleanor's life surfaced in his mind from what little she had shared in panic. A childhood of being told to be strong, to never depend on anyone. A career built on relentless ambition. A loneliness disguised as independence. Lucas understood loneliness well. His own life had been a series of closed doors and second looks, of proving he wasn't what people assumed. In that waiting room, two very different worlds hovered close to colliding. When dawn finally crept through the hospital windows, Eleanor awoke groggy and weak, but alive. The doctors told her she had ignored warning signs for weeks, that stress and exhaustion had pushed her body to a breaking point. Another hour, they said, and the outcome could have been very different. She listened in stunned silence, the weight of how close she had come pressing down on her harder than any boardroom pressure ever had. When Lucas finally stepped into her room, awkward and unsure, Eleanor saw him clearly for the first time. Not as a rough stranger in the rain, but as the reason she was breathing. Gratitude cracked something open inside her, something she had kept sealed for decades. She realized how easily she would have dismissed him on any other day, how wrong she would have been. Recovery forced Eleanor to slow down in ways she never had. Days turned into weeks, and in those weeks, Lucas visited quietly, never asking for anything, never reminding her of what he had done. They talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. About fear. About loss. About the strange ways life offers help when you least expect it. Eleanor began to see how small her world had been despite its size, how little room she had left for kindness that didn't come with contracts or expectations. When she finally left the hospital, changed not just physically but deeply, Eleanor made choices that shocked those around her. She stepped back from the relentless grind, redirected her resources toward people who lived unseen at the edges of society, and began funding emergency transport programs inspired by the night she almost lost everything. She didn't announce it with press releases or gala dinners. She did it quietly, intentionally, remembering the rain, the fear, and the biker who stopped. Lucas returned to his road, but not unchanged. For the first time in years, he felt seen for who he truly was. He carried that with him, a reminder that even in a world quick to judge, compassion still had the power to rewrite stories. Just before this story ends, take a moment and comment one word that this journey made you feel: hope, gratitude, faith, or kindness, because your words may reach someone who needs them today. Near the end of her recovery, Eleanor stood outside that same hotel, watching rain fall softly instead of violently, her reflection staring back at her from the glass doors. She understood now that wealth had never been her strength. Humanity was. And sometimes, everything changes not because of who you are, but because of who stops when you need help the most. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and leave a comment to let us know. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, and somewhere out there, someone may be waiting for the hope you just passed along.